Okay, so I wanted to show some progress that I've made here in doing the AgnosticUI rewrite. Got several components done in the last few days. So let's start with the pagination. Go up to the examples here. So this is a sort of a typical pagination pattern. And we have pagination where the current one is bordered, and you just passed in a bordered attribute, and we can control the offset. So this is a little bit confusing without explanation. So if you look at this 25, obviously it's the currently selected page. An offset of 2 just says that, hey, whenever you have a current page, I want you to show the 2 pages above and below it. And so here we see offset 1 just shows 1 beside it. So if I click 24, that'll move over into the selected position, and then 23 and 25 become selected. If I go all the way up to 50, well, there's nothing above it, so you only see the one below, which is 49. But then when I click 49, we see the offset of 48 and 50. So it's an interesting thing to code up, but I actually had a lot of this functionality in V1, so sort of more of a parity play. And again, using CSS parts, we can really customize these components pretty drastically. I'm not saying that these look good. I just we wanted to exemplify just how much you can push the reskinning of these, if you will. And something that I didn't have in V1 that I thought would be nice to add and very useful is content pagination. So I put this all in the same pagination section because it seems like it belongs, but it's a different component. So if you're going to use it, you'd import a different thing. Let me see if I can show you the usage. I'll show you the lit. Right, so it's content pagination, and the tag is AG content pagination. And then the other pagination we just looked at is just AG pagination. But they're both pagination type components. So let's take a look at these. So these are really useful for guides, documentation sites, and the idea is all these are optional. You can have an optional parent. So in this case, this documentation here is the parent. So say you're in the documentation weaving through these different pages or chapters, and you could go up to the parent. You can have them with hrefs, so they're anchor tags, and that affects the URL. Or you can use buttons, and I can actually click these without the page jumping. Whereas these, I've got it linked to these, right back to these examples. You can use a bordered style, as you see here, bordered style. You can use custom icons. I'm not sure what I think I used different chevrons. I need to fix this because that's a little unclear, huh? Looks just like everything else. Okay, so we found a bug. So here's an example. I was saying earlier that all of these are optional. So here we've omitted the previous because we're at on the very first page, for example. Or maybe we're on the last page, so there's nothing to put in next. So you just have a previous and a parent. You can, as I said, customize these. So here's a customization where you're using things that look more like links, I guess. And then here's a more drastic customization. And you can look at this. It's these CSS parts. So you see where it says part. And these are, as you see, in the shadow DOM. But because of these cool CSS parts, I can use this mechanism as a means to style this web component. So you can see just even from coming in here like this, I can drastically change this. I'm going to have to find the font to... So let's take the white off so they start to appear. Maybe we make this something else. it's jumping around nicely on me. Let's just make it pink for fun. I don't know. Not really probably a good choice, but so you could see how easy this stuff would be to customize. And that's nothing special necessarily to AgnosticUI. It's just we're utilizing CSS parts. It's the platform helping us out. So that's pretty exciting to get that done. We added another skeleton view. Looks like I have a bug to fix in my skeleton loader example. Interesting. I'll have to look at what's going on there. So I can't show you skeleton loader. Sorry. Oh, I didn't properly install this maybe. Let's see here. Time to go back to the lab. Oh, what did happen here? Let's see. Let's try to install this again. So, let's see. What we are doing is we are... did I actually rebuild the library? We're taking the packed npm module and reinstalling it into the VPress site. So let's see if that fixes up things. I hope it does, so I can show you this stuff. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to leave that in. So actually, let's go back to skeleton loader, because that was the one I wanted to show you. So I'm pretty excited to add these. We didn't have these in the V1 version of AgnosticUI. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with skeleton loaders and how they work. Typically, you just have some conditional thing like is loading boolean, and you start with these rendered, and then in your rendered block, you conditionally switch to the real content when it loads. Some people think it's an anti-pattern. Probably save it for when you really need it, but sometimes things take a while. Like if you have a whole huge activity feed to load, like you see it on Facebook, right? In any event, they're there, and you can choose between a pulsing effect, a sheen effect. I'm not sure if it'll come through on the video. Medium is slightly darker if you need a little bit more contrast. So yeah, fun times. And then we added a slider, and we did not have this in AgnosticUI version 1. And we have a dual range slider. So this is fun and interesting. I've got a little thing, it follows my cursor, so it kind of has a little animation drag, which is kind of fun. And you have your different size variants. You can opt into a monochrome color scheme if you prefer. And that fits in with what we have like on the checkboxes and the radios. You can have it use ticks and a tooltip. So you see as I drag it, you see a tooltip of your value. I would probably always use that myself, but it is opt-in. And then you can jump to these steps. That's pretty easy to do. And then we have vertical sliders too. These are a little short and stubby, but you can see the idea. And then the other things you'd expect to have: disabled, read-only, invalid. And then here's the event logging. You can see that these values are available in event callbacks. Okay. And again, these CSS shadow parts or CSS parts lets you make these however you would like them to look within reason, because it depends on what parts I've made available. But I've been pretty liberal about exposing parts on as many things as possible. Hopefully not to my demise, because it does mean there's a little more to maintain, because as you go in and customize this and you find things and have a reasonable complaint or bug, I might have to fix it. So but I just felt I like the idea of being able to have the freedom of customizing this. I think that's a neat thing that web components give you. They give you this encapsulation and protection, yet they have these mechanisms for allowing you to style them. So if you're using CSS custom properties, I think those would propagate out to your whole system. Like if you change the border radius, say it's 10 pixels and you change it to 5 pixels, that's going to affect all your components. Whereas the CSS, which is sometimes great, like you can just basically have a whole different theme. One set of components looks a little more boxy, the other one maybe more rounded. But then if you want to get in and target a specific component, you don't like something about it, or you want to customize it. So like in this case, maybe you want the thumb to be bigger, or different, you want to add a drop shadow effect or whatever it is, you're free to do that. And so I think that's a really cool thing about web components. The fact that you get the protection and the encapsulation, yet a means to style things. And I think that is it on the new stuff. Let me just look here real quickly from top to bottom. Yeah, I think that's it. I've got, what do I have next on the list? I think I'm going to do just a popover, which is obviously something super important. And, I already use popover for the menu. So I'm going to get in there and look at how can I reuse this. I'm using floating UI. I think I know I'm using that for the tooltips, but I think I'm also using it for here. And I think what I would do is tease this apart so that this is going to become a popover component. So then I just compose it into this menu, but then you'll be able to have use cases where you need just a popover for whatever you need a popover for, and it'll be there for you. And then I think I want to do a stack. I'm not usually too keen on things like layout components, but I think a stack is just super useful, because it's like anytime you're tossing in content, you need to do stuff. Like even on this documentation site, you can see I've got these block sections, and I want to see if I have it in here. Well, in certain places, I guess I don't have it here. Certain places I have like a utility class for margin, and it's just a little tedious to always have to add those utility classes. So I don't know. I was on the fence on it, but I did some analysis on what other people are offering in there, or what other component libraries are offering. And it seems like Stack is maybe a pretty useful one. I think I counted and I was at like 32 components. So I'm probably going to do 4 or 5 more and then consider this a wrap. And then when I do that, I have to go back in and reorganize the whole repo, figure out how I'm going to deploy the documentation site and release and all that stuff. But pretty excited to be this far, and just wanted to share with you guys. Thanks for watching.